As a baseball fan, there is nothing sweeter than predicting a prospect is going to do well, and then he exceeds all of your expectations. Whether that's a super prospect like Corbin Carroll having a historic season, or even a surprise Rookie of the Year guy like Tanner Bybee. But that's why we're making today's video. We're going to go through every team in baseball and try and figure out their next breakout player. Now remember everyone, if you're going to any baseball games trying to see these guys live, be sure to use code Fuzzy on SeatGeek for 20 bucks off your tickets. I know the last time we saw Grayson Rodriguez, he was getting torched in the playoffs, but trust me, he's going to be so good in 2024. And I'm confident in saying that because after he was recalled in mid-July last year, over his final 12 starts, he put up a 2.2 ERA over 72 innings. To me, the thing that changed with Grayson in the second half is he really relied on the slider and the changeup. He might have the best changeup in baseball after Luis Castillo, and even though he throws a billion miles an hour, his fastball wasn't very good. Hitters had a 350 batting average against it. So if Grayson continues to work on his cadence and make that fastball as unpredictable as possible while mixing in a changeup and a slider, he's going to be so good. We have back-to-back pitchers, and this one might surprise you guys, but I'm going Cutter Crawford as the breakout player for the Boston Red Sox. Now, the unfortunate part about Cutter Crawford is the fact that his cutter isn't very good, so hopefully that improves in 2024. But what stood out to me about Cutter's second half is over his final 14 starts, he held his opponents to a 198 batting average. He had 77 strikeouts over his final 60 innings, and what's more exciting about Cutter, he put on 10 pounds of muscle over the offseason. He's throwing 98 in spring with insane vertical movement. He legitimately has a chance at becoming the Red Sox ace. Yes, even over a young guy like Brian Bayo, who I think is really good as well. Now, you guys know I'm from Las Vegas, and so is our next player, Austin Wells of the Yankees, so perhaps I'm biased, but I don't really care. I wanted to go with Anthony Volpe, but to me, after what I saw from Austin down the stretch, his swing was built for Yankee Stadium. Now, he's not going to be Jose Trevino back there defensively, but over his final 8 games, again, it's a very small sample size, but over 8 games, he had 3 doubles, 4 home runs, and 9 RBIs. I just think that he brings a dimension to that Yankees lineup that they haven't had in quite some time. He lengthens the lineup because the last few years, Higashioka, Trevino, some of the other guys, they've been automatic outs. So while I think that Anthony Volpe is going to be better this year, to me, Austin Wells, he's got to be my pick. And again, I'm probably being biased. Coming up next, the breakout player for the Rays. This kid has a chance of hurting my feelings for the next decade because Junior Caminero, he used to be with the Guardians, my favorite team. But Cleveland traded this kid for belly button lint and 14 cents because they got nothing in return. The guy that they got isn't even with Cleveland anymore. They lost him for nothing. And that just can't happen because Junior Caminero is now the 4th best prospect in all of baseball according to MLB, and last year in the minors, he had 31 home runs and a 325 batting average in 117 games. He skipped AAA completely. They called him straight up from AA. Now, obviously, it was a short sample size. He wasn't that good in his cup of coffee debut season, but he's still a rookie going into 2024. He's great on the bases. The exit velocities are there. He's a great defender at the hot corner. He could quite literally become one of the best players in baseball within the next 2 or 3 years. Now, I know Kevin Biggio has had some good seasons in the past, but he's never played more than 110 games aside from last year. Maybe you think that his rookie season was his breakout season where he had 16 home runs and a 113 OPS plus, but going into 2024, I think he's going to beat both of those numbers. He now has third base all to himself, and he's actually a pretty decent defender over there at the hot corner, and check out his offensive stats over the final few months of the season. From the middle of June to the end of the season, over his final 196 at-bats, Kevin Biggio put up a whopping 380 on base percentage. He almost had an 800 OPS. And again, it's not like he's Brooks Robinson over there at third base, but now that he's going to get consistent playing time, maybe a more consistent position, he should be a lot better, right? Garrett Crochet is back and seemingly better than ever. If you guys don't remember, he was drafted in the first round of the 2020 MLB draft and made his debut a few months later in 2020. The thing you have to remember about the White Sox is there's no more Liam Hendricks. There's no more Ronaldo Lopez. Garrett Crochet, he should be the closer going forward. Now, last year when he came back from injury, he was all over the place in terms of command. He had a 9.2 walks per 9. That's very, very concerning. And the walks were always technically an issue. In 2021, before he got injured, he had a 4.5 walks per 9, despite the fact that he was striking out everyone. He's nasty, but he has to get that command in check. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because I'm about to talk about spring training. I know, what are you doing, Fuzz? But he's looked better in spring. He struck out Shohei Ohtani. That slider's looking nasty. He's hitting his spots more often. This is the year that Garrett Crochet has 25 saves and a 12.5 strikeouts per 9. Now, I know I talk smack about the Guardians from time to time, but man, they are an absolute pitching factory. From one 6'6", 24-year-old to another, Gavin Williams, he's about to become the Cleveland ace. I'm going to lock in on 2 starts that he had in August, 2 consecutive starts. From August 7th to August 12th, he faced off against the Blue Jays and the Rays. He went 12 innings, had 22 strikeouts, and only allowed 6 base hits. Oh, also, the cherry on top, he only had 1 walk over those 12 innings. Gavin's final 11 starts of the season were very, very impressive. He had 58 strikeouts and 52 innings and a 2.92 ERA. He actually has the opposite issue of Grayson. Grayson has a really good changeup. Hitters had a 353 batting average against Gavin Williams' changeup, so let's just maybe not throw that anymore. But regardless, Gavin Williams, along with Tanner Bybee, they have given Cleveland an opportunity to trade Shane Bieber, and that's probably going to happen. Not going to lie to you guys, I really wanted to go with another pitcher, but I'm not going to do that for the Tigers. I'm going to go Colt Keith, but hey, shout out to Reese Olson. That kid has a crazy high ceiling and a really bright future ahead of him. It's just kind of hard to argue with the fact that they've given Colt Keith a contract, so he's going to get playing time, and the stats that he put up, these are stupid. At 21 years old and 126 games, Colt Keith had 38 doubles, 27 home runs while hitting .306. He had a .932 OPS as a middle infielder. And if you're a Tigers fan, that is music to your ears, considering Tigers second basemen have been watching too much Interstellar. They got too focused on black holes because that's what they've been recently. Black holes at second base. They've been useless. So again, they've given him a lot of money. All of the peripherals are there. He's a great defender as well. Colt Keith is about to break out. Listen, I know the Cubs have a lot of young players, a lot of good young players like Christopher Morel, even prospects like Pete Armstrong and Owen Casey, but why did they give away Nelson Velasquez? This dude had a .621 slugging for the Cubs last year before he got shipped to the Royals. He had a 143 OPS plus in 13 games. He goes to the Royals and essentially becomes Jorge Soler 2.0. He had 14 home runs and a 134 OPS plus in 40 games. And the thing about Nelson, when he makes contact, it goes a long way. He tears covers off of baseballs. Now, just like Ben Parker said, with great power comes a lot of swing and miss and strikeouts, and that's exactly what you're going to get with Nelson. A lot of power, but a lot of strikeouts. But to me, because Vinny Pasquantino is going to be back in the lineup and healthy, Bobby Witt Jr. broke out, Nelson's going to have a little bit more protection, so he should theoretically get better pitches. It does not make sense that Alex Kirilloff has not had a 50 home run season. It really doesn't. Now, last year he was better, 11 home runs and a 117 OPS plus in 88 games, but check out these minor league stats. This is why Alex Kirilloff has been so highly coveted by the Twins. Last year in AAA, he hit .370 with 5 home runs and 18 RBIs in 16 games. The year before that, before getting called up in AAA, Alex Kirilloff hit .360 with 10 home runs in 35 games. The power is prodigious. He's not that fast. He plays terrible defense. All we really need Alex Kirilloff to do is rake, and I think he's about to start doing that. Wow, Fuzzy, you're so brave and different for choosing Hunter Brown. He's definitely not a former top prospect or anything. Well, to be fair, he had a 5 ERA last year. And the craziest part about Hunter Brown is, yes, he strikes out a lot of guys, 170 plus strikeouts and 150-ish innings, but his pitches weren't that good. And I say that because he doesn't get a lot of whiffs or chases outside the zone, so his fastball, it's a little flat. Hitters had a 270 batting average against it, and with the slider, they basically hit 300 against it. Now, if we take a look at his splitter, that's the pitch that he has to focus on more going into 2024. He held opponents to a 121 batting average with the splitter, and he had a 37% whiff rate. That's insane. My gut is telling me that Hunter Brown is going to use that splitter more often and really mitigate the fastball. He's still going to throw it because he throws 100 miles an hour, but just like Grayson Rodriguez, he can't become predictable. He's got to mix it up. Logan O'Hoppe has a chance at becoming one of the best offensive backstops we've seen in quite some time. He is really good. Last year, he missed quite some time due to injuries, but in the 182 at-bats that he did have, he had 14 home runs and a 111 OPS plus. Having a 500 slugging as a catcher is almost unheard of. Now, defensively, he has a lot of work to do to catch up to a JT Realmuto, but he does remind me of JT because he's decent on the bases and he crushes the ball. He had a 90.5 mile per hour average exit velocity. That's really good, and he almost always finds a barrel. I'm really hoping that he can work on his pop time and framing, because if he can do both of those things, I have no worry in the world about his offense. He could become a top 5 catcher by the end of 2024. You guys might think I'm crazy for saying this, but Zach Geloff of the A's might have the best season of anyone in this video. Zach Geloff wasn't just good for the A's last year. He was historically good in his first 15 to 20 games. Last year, he had 20 doubles, 14 home runs, 14 stolen bases, in 69 games. I feel like most middle infielders would be happy with that over 162. He plays very solid defense as well, and I know it's spring training, but he's probably been the best player in spring thus far. Everything is saying that he's about to break out and be one of the best second basemen in baseball all over again. And not gonna lie, I like some of the pieces that the A's have in that lineup. They could be a sneaky good offense led by Zach Geloff. The biggest issue with the 2024 A's is going to be that pitching, but a team that doesn't have an issue with pitching, the Mariners. And that's because the Mariners have a kid named Bryan Woo. I did not realize how good he actually was because his 4.2 ERA, it seems to be lying. He was a strikeout machine in the minors, 11 strikeouts per nine, 12 strikeouts per nine, like consistently an 11 to 12 strikeouts per nine. And last year, he only had a 9.5 strikeouts per nine, so he's not even fully comfortable yet. The only thing that could get Bryan Woo into trouble is the home run ball, but it's not going to be a factor to me, at least going into 2024. So when you factor in Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Bryan Woo, Logan Gilbert, and Bryce Miller, that's probably the best rotation in all of MLB. And by the way, unlike the other flamethrowers in this video, Bryan Woo held his opponents to a 207 batting average on the fastball, so his fastball is very good. I've fanboyed about this guy enough over the last few weeks and months of the offseason. Wyatt Langford, he looks like the next Paul Goldschmidt. He's been that good so far. As a junior, he hit 360 with 26 home runs. As a senior, 370 with 21 home runs. And then he goes to the minor leagues. He gets to AAA in one single year. And by the way, he hit 360 between all three leagues. Then you throw in the fact that he had 12 stolen bases in 44 games last year across the minors. Who is this guy? Jesus? Obviously, I am being facetious, but now that Mitch Garver is gone, I don't know if the Rangers have a lot of faith in Sam Huff. Expect Wyatt Langford to not only make the opening day roster, but play 150 games if he stays healthy. So now we're moving on to the National League side of things. The Atlanta Braves, my heart wants to say Jared Kelenic, but I'm going to go with my head and AJ Smith-Shawver. I think that's how you say it. AJ was not very good in his cup of coffee debut last year. He had a 4.3 ERA and only 20 strikeouts in 25 innings. That's not what he's known for. He's known for striking out everyone. He had a 13.5 strikeouts per nine in 2022, and last year he had 11.5 strikeouts per nine. So the strikeouts went down, but so did the walks per nine. But he still had a 4.8 walks per nine. But across the board, he went from single A to double A to triple A. He had a 2.7 ERA in 62 innings with a very impressive 79 strikeouts. But for some reason, the home run ball really hurt him once he actually got called up. His curveball is a problem as well. Hitters were hitting 370 against it, but the fastball is great. The slider's really good. That curveball, it's got to get fixed. And if that happens, watch out. The Braves are going to be even nastier now that Chris Sale is back to being Chris Sale. Yo, Fuzzy, you made a mistake, my guy. You put a cover athlete for MLB The Show and a former All-Star as a breakout player. What are you doing? Jazz has only been able to play 157 games over the last few years because he's constantly injured. So we haven't really seen him be able to break out because he doesn't have enough games under his belt, at least in my opinion. Now, yes, he does still have 1,000 at-bats, and I'm probably just yapping at this point, but for me, the reason why he's in today's video, I think he's about to break out for a 30-30 season. Remember how I said he's only played 157 over the last two seasons? In that 157, he has 33 home runs and 34 stolen bases, along with really good defense as an outfielder. The fact that him and Tatis just moved positions and became elite defenders is crazy to me, but then again, they're elite athletes, so it makes sense. But that's my justification. Yes, Jazz has been on the cover of a video game. He's been an all-star, but we haven't seen it in bulk, and I think we're going to get that in 2024. So, I have no reasoning behind this next pick because Brett Baty has been absolutely awful, like borderline useless as an MLB player. He has a negative 1.1 WAR and a 65 OPS plus. What even is that? I'm just hoping that he doesn't become the next 4A player that is a guy that is too good for AAA, but not good enough for MLB. But did you guys see what he did in AAA? This is why they can't hold him down there. In 26 games, he had 10 home runs and 31 RBIs to go along with a 10-13 OPS. You can't keep a guy down there if he's raking that much. Again, this is simply a gut feeling. Something is telling me that he's finally going to be able to make contact more often because the exit velocities, they're fantastic. The raw talent is there. Something's saying Brett Baty is going to be good. But that's all I got. I have no proof. For the Phillies, I'm going to go with a guy that might not make an impact until the second half. I'm going to go their 15th overall pick from 2020, Mick Abel. Mick is like a lot of other young starting pitchers in this video. He strikes out everyone, but also walks everyone. He had a 5.2 walks per nine last year. Now, at the time of this recording, he's with the Phillies camp for spring training, so they're trying to work him in, but he is only 22 years old, so he has some time to grow and develop, but I'm thinking that's going to get sped up. He'll be on the team in the second half, and he'll be so nasty down the stretch. For the Washington Nationals, I really wanted to go with James Wood, but I don't know if he's going to make the opening day roster considering they've signed Eddie Rosario, they have Joey Gallo, they have Jesse Winker. There's no room right now for James Wood, so we're looking at 2025. So for this video, video's sake, I'm going to go Mackenzie Gore. If we take a look at why Mackenzie Gore had a near 4.5 ERA last year, it's because his fastball got absolutely torched. I didn't realize it was as bad as it was. Hitters had a 280 batting average and a near 505 slugging against his fastball. The changeup was a whole lot better. The sweeper was even better. He should just throw those more often. Even his curveball has a 38% whiff rate, so can we just not throw the fastball as often, Mackenzie? I know you throw gas, but maybe not rely on it as much. Now, maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment because I just saw him carve up in spring, and again, in spring training, it's Fugazi, it doesn't exist, but 7 strikeouts over 5 innings in spring with only 1 walk, you're going to be encouraged by that. I don't care if it's spring. We're talking about Mackenzie Gore here, not Logan Allen. For the Chicago Cubs, I had an interesting choice to make. Was I going to go with Michael Busch, the power-hitting first baseman who's about to break out, or is it Shota Imanaga, the brand new foreign pitcher? I'm going to go with Shota. I saw him in the WBC absolutely carving people up like Paul Goldschmidt, other guys on other teams. He looked incredible. Last year in Japan, he did everything you would want as a pitcher. He wasn't walking anyone. He was striking out everyone. So 2 thumbs up from me. I don't really have much else to say about Shota Imanaga because I don't really know a lot about him. I just know he's probably going to be good. So let me know in the comments down below, did I make the correct choice in choosing Imanaga over Michael Busch, or do you think that Michael Busch is finally going to put it together and become a monster in the big leagues? You could choose so many potential breakout players for the Reds. Maybe you think that Ellie De La Cruz is going to be able to hit lefties. Matt McLain, if he stays healthy, he could be one of the best second basemen in baseball. Christian Encarnacion-Strand, he rakes, but I'm going to go with none of those guys. I'm going with the third baseman, Noelvi Marte. Noelvi came on over in the Luis Castillo trade, so you know that they think the world of this kid if they're willing to part ways with Luis Castillo. And if you guys forgot, he did make his debut last year. It was only 114 at-bats, but he had 3 home runs, 6 stolen bases, and a near 320 batting average with a 120 OPS plus. And defensively, he's very good at the hot corner. He's been a top 30 prospect in baseball for 3 years in a row. He was in the futures game, and in the minor leagues, he's raked. So whether he's swatting doubles in the gap, hitting home runs, swiping stolen bases, Noelvi has a chance at being a really good 5-tool player. Everything that we just said about Noelvi Marte, we can say the exact same thing about Jackson Chourio, but to a higher level. He's even better. Jackson is about to turn 20 years old, so these stats he did as a 19-year-old. Last year in the minors, in 128 games, he had 26 doubles, 22 home runs, 44 stolen bases with an 805 OPS. Clearly, he's not going to be a Juan Soto where he's getting on base 41% of the time, but when you go 22 home runs and 44 stolen bases at 19 years old while hitting 285, you're not supposed to be able to do that. I don't know when he's going to get called up exactly. He is looking pretty good in spring, but just like the Rays trust in Junior Caminero, the Brewers have that same trust in Jackson Chourio. He's no joke. Do you guys remember how we talked about Brett Baty? We picked him simply because we have a gut feeling. I have that same gut feeling with Henry Davis. To me, it's fairly simple why he wasn't good last year, and it's because he was thrown in a position that he's almost never played before. He's very uncomfortable with the outfield. At least that makes sense in my little head. If I went from being a catcher my entire life to being one of the worst defensive outfielders in baseball, maybe I'm just not as mentally strong as some of you, but that would crush my confidence, and I feel like it would really burden the momentum I've built over the last few years. We're talking about the #1 overall pick in 2021 who lit it up in college and then also in the minors. I mean, look at what he did last year in 55 games. 12 home runs, 10 stolen bases with a 306 batting average and a 1015 OPS. This is not Akil Baddoo we're talking about. Is he the best defensive catcher I've ever seen? No, but does he have a rocket for an arm and can work on framing as he gets older? Absolutely. Another young guy who I believe is going to get better defensively as the years progress, Jordan Walker, who was my breakout player for the Cardinals. Did you guys know that Jordan Walker is still top 20% in sprint speed despite the fact that he's 6'6", 250? So because he's such a large human, obviously he has a cannon attached to his arm. He has one of the strongest arms of any outfielder in baseball, but that doesn't mean he's a world-class defender. He's actually the opposite. He's probably the worst defender up there with Kyle Schwarber. There are 2 defensive stats that we look at, and either way, he was awful. He had a -16 DRS and a -14 outs above average. But there is some good news. He's working with the former Cardinal, Willie McGee, who has won 3 Gold Gloves. If they can work on his routes to baseballs and reads off the bat, Jordan Walker is going to be a perennial MVP candidate, even at 21, 22 years old. It made me so happy to see Brandon Pfaadt exceed in the playoffs because I was starting to think I was crazy. I always thought that Brandon was going to be good, but he kept proving me wrong in the regular season. I know he was great in the playoffs when it mattered the most, but we can't ignore the fact that he had a 5.7 ERA in the playoffs with less strikeouts than innings pitched. The only thing that he exceeded in the regular season was not walking anyone. He was top 18% at not allowing walks. But because we saw that small sample size of greatness in the playoffs, and you compound that with the fact that he had a 2.6 ERA and a near 11 strikeouts per nine in the Pacific Coast League last year. The Pacific Coast League, the PCL, it's basically a launching pad. No matter where you play, it's basically Coors Field. So a 2.6 ERA is impressive. The thing that really made Brandon more successful in the playoffs was the fact that the sweeper was still there. The sweeper is probably his best pitch, but he was able to get more whiffs on fastballs inside the zone in the playoffs. He just got more whiffs in general. He has to miss bats. If he doesn't, he gets smoked. For the Rockies, I'm going to go with a sneaky 20-20-20 guy that's 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and 20 DRS. That's 20 defensive runs saved. Now, I will admit, Brenton has an all-time bad strikeout issue, not only in the minors, but in the big leagues as well. He's striking out nearly 35% of the time, no matter where he's at. But Brenton Doyle is 6'2". He is one of the fastest players in baseball, has one of the best arms in baseball, one of the best defenders in baseball, and in the final month of the season, check this out. He had 5 doubles, 4 triples out of nowhere in 1 month, 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases, and a 101 OPS plus. That's all you need Brenton Doyle to do. Did he have 3 walks to 27 strikeouts in that same month? Yeah, he did. But he could legitimately join Trevor Story, Mookie Betts, and Fernando Tatis Jr. as the only few guys over the last decade to have a 20-20-20 season. But just like Joey Gallo, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't make contact consistently, it's not going to mean much. You guys have no idea how bad I want to go with Yoshinobu Yamamoto for this video, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with Bobby Miller, the 6'5" flamethrower who did have 22 starts and a 3.7 ERA last year. So you're thinking, why is he on today's video? It should be going to someone else who actually deserves to break out. Well, I feel like he's about to break out even more. Bobby Miller had one of the better changeups and curveballs in all of baseball last year. His issue, just like Grayson Rodriguez, the fastball becomes predictable. Surprisingly, Bobby Miller only had 119 strikeouts and 124 innings last year, despite the fact that he throws a million miles an hour and has a great curveball. His strong suit is actually not allowing walks. So when you have newcomers like Ohtani, Glasnow, and Yamamoto, they're probably going to shed some wisdom on Bobby Miller to get more chases because all 3 of those guys, they're elite at getting chases outside the zone. If you have not bought stock in Luis Campusano, what are you doing? I'm going to convince you right now to go buy some cards. Luis Campusano is kind of the NL version of Logan O'Hoppe, someone who is going to be a pretty poor defensive catcher, at least an average defensive catcher if he improves at all, but offensively, he can rake. I should be careful calling him the NL version of Logan O'Hoppe because while they're both gifted hitters, they do it in a different way. Logan O'Hoppe tears covers off of baseballs, and it's not like Luis doesn't, but Luis, he has a far better plate approach. Luis almost never strikes out. He had a 12.1 K percentage last year. That's very impressive, and he was really good at not missing pitches inside the zone. When there's a mistake pitch, Luis usually makes that pitcher pay. So again, a lot of work to do defensively as a catcher. Offensively, not a lot of question marks for me. So from one Luis who never strikes out to another, Luis Matos is going to be my breakout player for the Giants. I could have gone with Marco Luciano, maybe an Elliot Ramos, but I'm still going Luis Matos because just like Cutter Crawford, who put on 10 pounds to throw harder, Luis has put on 10 pounds to hit the ball harder. And so far, so good in spring. Now again, I know it's spring, take it with a grain of salt, but the power is legit. He has 3 home runs and 19 at-bats. Luis Matos does not chase at-bat pitches. He is going to force you to throw a ball inside the zone, and because of that, last year in the minors, he had a .331 batting average with 12 home runs and 15 stolen bases in only 63 games. He's only 22 years old, and now that he has some power on his tool belt, watch out for Luis Matos. He could be the missing piece to that puzzle. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any other players in mind for any team, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate you watching until the end, and I'll catch you in the next one.